Hi, everybody. It's Mia Maya again, and I am reading starting from chapter 20 of Genesis, um, the Amplified version, because it just gives you a more fleshed out understanding of what the word is communicating. Okay, so Abraham's deception, chapter 20. Now, Abraham journeyed from there toward Negev, the south country, and settled between Kadesh and Shur. Then he lived temporarily in Gerar. Abraham said again of Sarah his wife, "She is my sister." Keep in mind, she actually is his half sister, different, same father, different mothers. Okay, um, which was, I guess, that was the custom back then. Okay, so Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah into his harem. But God came to Abimelech in a dream during the night and said, "Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken as your wife, for she is another man's wife." Now, Abimelech had not yet come near her, so he said, "Lord, will you kill a people who are righteous and innocent and blameless regarding Sarah? And did Abraham not tell me she is my sister? She herself said, 'He is my brother.' In the integrity of my heart and innocence of my hands, I have done this." Then God said to him in the dream, "Yes, I know you did this in the integrity of your heart, for it was I who kept you back and spared you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not give you an opportunity to touch her. So now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. But if you do not return her to him, know that you shall die, you and all your household." So Abimelech got up early in the morning and called all his servants toward them and told them all these things. And the men were terrified. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "What have you done to us? And how have I offended you that you have brought on me my kingdom a great sin? You have done to me what ought not to be done to anyone." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What have you encountered or seen in us or our customs that you have done this unjust thing?" Abraham said, "Because I thought, surely there is no fear or reverence of God in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she actually is my half sister. She is the daughter of my father Terah, but not of my mother, and she became my wife. When God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, 'This kindness and loyalty you can show me. At every place we stop, say of me, he is my brother.' Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male and female slaves and gave them to Abraham, and returned Sarah his wife to him as God commanded. So Abimelech said, 'Behold, my land before you, settle wherever you please.' Then to Sarah he said, 'Look, I have given this brother of yours 1,000 pieces of silver. It is to compensate you for all that has happened, and to vindicate your honor before all who are with you. Before all men you are cleared and compensated.' So Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maids. They again gave birth to children. For the Lord had securely closed the wombs of all the women in Abimelech's household because of Sarah, Abraham's wife." So, yeah, that was really cool how, God stepped in and blessed Abimelech by not giving him an opportunity to actually sin against Sarah and Abraham. And he blessed Abraham because, over the years when I've heard this story, I thought, wow, that's kind of low down of Abraham. But those were different times back then, and I get it. I mean, I could easily see Sarah being so beautiful. Apparently, I mean, she was great, and I could see him dying on because of her. I could see that happening. So, you know, so he said, either he's dead or he has to act like that's not his wife. and I guess deal with the consequences. But God protected Abraham and Sarah and never even let that happen. So that was really cool, you know. And let's see. And every time this happened, Abraham wound up richer too. Just it's kind of funny. Okay. So anyway. Oh wow. Oh, ooh, ooh. Okay. I'm down at the bottom, and I just noticed a footnote. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's see. What's this? Okay. So this is also so I'm down in the footnotes, and it says the word Abimelech may be a royal title instead of a proper name. In either case, this man is probably father or grandfather of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, encountered later by Isaac. And then this is an interesting factoid. It says here Sarah was about 90 years old at this time. 90. No, okay, so I believe she was past at this point. She was past the time of when she could be, naturally produce children. But she was still so amazing that her husband still had to say, "Tell him I'm your brother," and men still, and the king still came and took her into their harems. Um, Woo-wee. Don't we all wish we were that bad, For real. Um, let's see. And then let's see, Genesis 20:16. It says here, and when Abimelech says to Sarah, "Look, I have given this brother of yours 1,000 pieces of silver, um, perhaps about 3 years or 3 years or 3,000 days wages." That's not bad. That's not bad. Okay, moving on to Genesis 21. Isaac is born. The Lord graciously remembered and visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for her as he had promised. So Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son for Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham named his son Isaac, or laughter, the son to whom Sarah gave birth. So Abraham circumcised his son when he was 8 days old, just as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Sarah said, "God has made me laugh. All who hear about our good news will laugh with me." And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah could nurse children? For I have given birth to a son by him in my old age. Isn't that amazing? The child Isaac grew and was weaned, and Abraham held a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Sarah turns against Hagar. Yeah. Ooh, these two women. Mind you, Sarah started this mess. Okay, but Abraham co-signed it, kind of like Adam and Eve. Kind of like Adam and Eve. Eve kind of like started the mess by listening to the serpent, and Adam co-signed on it. He was standing right there with her. Didn't say a word. That's why, and it said something in that chapter when God said to him, "Because you have, listened to your wife attentively, instead of listening to God attentively," right? But anyway, I digress, right? Okay, so Sarah turns against Hagar. Now, as time went on, Sarah saw Ishmael, the son of Hagar the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking Isaac. Therefore she said to Abraham, "Drive out this maid and her son, for the son of this maid shall not be an heir with my son Isaac." The situation distressed Abraham greatly because of his son Ishmael. God said to Abraham, "Do not let it distress you because of Ishmael and your maid. Whatever Sarah..." Oh, this is interesting. Interesting part of the Bible right here. God said to Abraham, "Do not let it distress you because of Ishmael and your maid. Whatever Sarah tells you, listen to her and do what she asks. For your descendants will be named through Isaac. And I will also make a nation of Ishmael, the son of the maid, because he is your descendant." So Abraham got up early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar, putting them on her shoulder, and gave her the boy and sent her away. And she left. but lost her way and wandered aimlessly in the wilderness of Beersheba. Wow, that's powerful. That is powerful. Because I'm not saying that he loved Hagar like he loved Sarah, that he really loved Hagar necessarily at all. But I imagine that, this is the mother of his child, and they were intimate, and there was some sort of relationship there. And he seems to be a good and decent man. So I can imagine that must have been a hard thing for him to do, and a hard thing for her to kind of grasp how he could do that to her and their child. And Ishmael is what at this time, what is he about, like 14, I think, and but mind you, he's a 14-year-old mocking a baby, I guess, very young child, which is questionable behavior, right? But yeah, uh but God in his infinite wisdom, God knew that I feel like God knew that Ishmael was never supposed to have existed. He just wasn't. And the truth was that there was never going to be any kind of peace between Ishmael and Isaac, and between Sarah and Hagar. It just was never going to happen. It was always going to be a problem. And maybe Ishmael did actually pose a threat to Isaac, actually, or Hagar did. So God in his infinite wisdom sent him away, and Abraham, as obedient as he always was to God, sent them away. Wow. I don't know why. I would think maybe Abraham would have sent her away with someone, not just by herself and the boy, but maybe would have sent somebody with him. But I don't know. But yeah, the truth was that, I don't think those two families could have existed together. I don't think they could. Plain and simple. Which is sorry, but it is what it is. Blended families is hard, right? It's hard. Okay. So, but okay. So anyway, so she gets lost in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was all gone, Hagar abandoned the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him, about a bow shot away, for she said, "Do not let me see the boy die." And as she sat down opposite him, she raised her voice and wept. God heard the voice of the boy. God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, What troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy from where he is resting. Get up, help the boy, and hold him by the hand, for I will make him a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the empty skin with water and gave the boy a drink. God was with Ishmael, and he grew and developed, and he lived in the wilderness and became an expert archer. He lived in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Wow. Even though this child was not the child of God's promise or God's will, God was with him as he was growing. God made a great nation of him. God blessed his mother and himself. God is a compassionate God, which is, I think that's, what she said about God, and it's interesting. She's the one who raised her voice up, crying out. But God said he heard the voice of the boy, and who was resting. And yeah, she was just in an impossible situation, and God stepped in. But, I found that to be true about God in my life too, that I have seen God step in when there really wasn't any other way for me to get out of this. God stepped in, I wasn't supposed to come up out of that. And but at the same time, I think that God really doesn't do stuff that you're capable of doing. He really doesn't. I can't think of when he really does. Um, you know, I find that many times God gives us a strength, a supernatural strength to keep pushing forward, but other than that, God doesn't do what do for you what you can do in general. So anyhow, okay, so where am I? Oh, okay. Covenant with Abimelech. Now at that time, Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, said to Abraham, God is with you in everything you do. So now swear to me here by God that you will not deal unfairly with me by breaking any agreements we have, or with my son, or with my descendants. But as I have treated you with kindness, you shall do the same to me and to the land in which you have sojourned, temporarily lived. And Abraham said, I will swear. Then Abraham complained to Abimelech about a well of water which the servants of Abimelech had violently seized from him. Abimelech said, I do not know who did this thing. Indeed, you did not tell me. I did not hear of it until today. So Abraham took sheep and oxen, gave them to Abimelech, and the two men made a covenant, a binding agreement. Then Abraham set apart 7 ewe lambs of flock. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set apart? Hi, I'm back. Okay. So Abimelech said to Abraham, what is the meaning of these 7 ewe lambs which you have set apart? Abraham said, you are to accept these 7 ewe lambs from me as a witness for me that I dug this well. Therefore, that place was called Beersheba, well of the oath, or well of the 7, because there the 2 of them swore an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. Then Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, got up and returned to the land of the Philistines. Abraham planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba, and there he called on the name of the Lord in prayer, the eternal God, and Abraham lived as a resident alien in the land of the Philistines for many days. Okay. Okay. So this is interesting. These footnotes. I love these footnotes. Okay. Okay. So it says here that that Isaac was probably weaned about age 3. Okay. And then it also says that this is interesting because this is kind of what I thought too. It says Ishmael was old enough to know better than to ridicule or tease his much younger brother. This behavior was inappropriate and thoughtless. Okay, so yeah, I mean, Sarah's looking at this like this is just all wrong. He's got to go. And I understand, because I think we all know that, like, especially those of us who are parents, especially when it comes to children, sometimes all you see is in with people in general, all you see is that one little thing. You just get that one little red flag that makes you go, and if you don't pay attention, some stuff goes down that, like, people got to be in therapy for 30 years for, so she saw that and said, that was just the beginning. That was just the beginning, and how could her 3-year-old son match up against, a teenager? So, and back then, I believe, I think once you were 13, you were pretty much considered a man or a woman. So yeah, that was odd behavior. And it just goes to show how deeply embedded the hatred was between Sarah and Hagar and Ishmael, how deeply embedded that hatred was that they all had for each other, and it was toxic as all get out, and it did pose a threat to Isaac. Okay, but yet God still had compassion for Hagar and Ishmael, so that was beautiful. Okay, and then what else? Yeah, that's what. Oh, okay. So look, I'm good with my math here. It says Ishmael was born when Abraham was 86. So Ishmael was about 14 when Isaac was born, and about 16 or 17 years old when Isaac was weaned. So okay, so he wasn't even a 14-year-old teenager. He was 16 or 17, ridiculing a 3-year-old. And I think any of us who is a mother, maybe not dad so much, but mothers, you look at a situation like that and that's scary, because if you're doing something like this and it's not in private, what are you going to do in private, you know? But anyway, I think all of you moms out there, you get it. Okay. Okay, anyhow. Okay, so chapter 22. um Yeah, I'm gonna go into this chapter because I haven't read that much yet. The offering of Isaac. Now, after these things, God tested the faith and commitment of Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he answered, Here I am. God said, Take now your son, your only son of promise, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. So Abraham got up early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac, and he split the wood for the burnt offering. And then he got up and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day of travel, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. Abraham said to his servants, Settle down and stay here with the donkey. The young man and I will go over there and worship God, and we will come back to you. Then Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and laid it on the shoulders of his son Isaac, and he took the fire pot in his own hand and the sacrificial knife, and the 2 of them walked together. And Isaac, uh, and Isaac said to Abraham, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son Isaac. Look, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham said, My son, God will provide for himself a lamb for the burnt offering. So the 2 walked on together. When they came to the place of which God had told him, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood and bound Isaac his son and placed him on the altar on top of the wood. Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to kill his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. He answered, Here I am. The Lord said, Do not reach out with the knife in your hand against the boy and do nothing to harm him. For now I know that you fear God with reverence and profound respect, since you have not withheld from me your son, your only son of promise. Then Abraham looked up and glanced around, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering, a sending sacrifice, instead of his son. So Abraham named that place, The Lord Will Provide. And it is said to this day, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be seen and provided. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, By myself, on the basis of who I am, I have sworn an oath, declares the Lord, that since you have done this thing and have not withheld from me your son, your only son of promise, indeed I will greatly bless you. I will greatly multiply your descendants like the stars of the heavens and like the sand of the seashore, and your seed shall possess the gate of their enemies as conquerors. Through your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have heard and obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his servants, and they got up and went with him to Beersheba. Abraham settled in Beersheba. Now after these things Abraham was told, Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz, the firstborn, and Buz, his brother, and Kemuel, the father of Aram, Chesed, and Hazel, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These 8 children Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. Nahor's concubine, whose name was Rumah, gave birth to Teba, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Maacah. Okay, Rebecca. So Rebecca is Abraham's niece. Um, and later Rebecca is going to be a part of all of this. So just keep in mind, she is Abraham's niece because, that's how things went down then. Okay. Okay. I'm in the footnotes because the footnotes are pretty juicy too. Okay, so this is interesting. So it says here in the footnotes, at this time that Abraham is getting ready to sacrifice Isaac. Isaac was about 20 at this time. Um, he's about 20 years old at this time. And it's interesting. So, this is not like he's not a 13-year-old boy, with his head up in the clouds. He's 20. He's a man. He's got some wherewithal about him. And this is interesting because all my life I'm always picturing a 13-year-old boy. This is a grown man. And just goes to show just how obedient children were back then, how obedient he was to his father, how obedient he was to God. Because you don't hear that he put up a fight at any point, that he struggled, that he said anything. He lay down on that altar and let his daddy tie him down to that altar. His daddy raised up his hand with the knife. The whole time the boy says nothing. This young man says nothing. There's no indication that he fought against this at all. And you know what just popped in my head just now? Jesus. Because they say Jesus, all that torture he went through, the lashes. Like, if you ever seen, what was the Mel Gibson movie that he made about Jesus? And it shows graphic detail, really just how bad Jesus was tortured before he died. And the whips, I believe they had like nails in them or something, like they were literally tearing the flesh off his body. And then the nails and the hands and the feet, and struggling struggling to breathe and all that. Well, I heard that it would have been a struggle for him to like breathe at that time or something like that, I heard. But they say Jesus never said a mumbling word when they were accusing him. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, whoever they in the kangaroo court, they were accusing. He didn't really say much anything. And so it's just so interesting how God took Abraham's sacrifice and did the same. Basically, did the same thing. God sacrificed his own son, and thank God he did, because if he didn't, we'd all be on our way to hell. We would. And now we have a choice. Now we have a choice, because what is it? John 3:16 says something. He gave his only begotten son so that whoever believes on him might not die but have eternal life. So it's just so fascinating. The Bible is really fascinating, and it's just interesting to try to get little God to just reveal little parts of his personality here and there, because that's the word reveals God to us. And so to get those glimpses and they're like, oh wow, that's interesting. So anyway, I got my children out there. So I'm going to they're not alone though, but I'm going to stop filming or recording right now, and I will talk to you tomorrow. And let me see. So I read from Genesis 20 through 22 because I felt like stopping after Isaac's almost sacrifice is a good place for me to stop. So, and I've only done about 29 minutes. So God bless you. And if you're out there, if you're watching this, please like, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell. And I just thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. And God bless you.